What up, what up, what up? It's your man Furious. We got Hugo the Black Spider Man, and we also got Monsters in the building.
Yes,
And
yes.
we just gonna talk free flow it, talk about what's on our minds, and people go through things, man. And right now, you know what? Actually, now that you brought that up, Monster, a lot of my friends are going through stuff, man. Yeah, one of my homegirls, she got fired from a job. Hugo, you got some stuff going on. I just had a PMS moment. So I'm just playing.
Almost everybody I know is going through
Yeah.
it, man. It's a weird time. Yeah. So one thing I was saying offline to the Conscious Cafe audience listening to us today is I thought it would be interesting to talk about kind of what the new modern family dynamic is, what that looks like, what the interactions are like, who defines what family is these days. I think we've gone from a colloquial suggestion of family being blood to now I think family is much more who we have in our lives, and friends can become family can become excluded from our circles. I think what the word family means these days has taken a shift. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, no, what you just said was deep, man. Coming from a military background, some of my family, well, people that I consider family are closer than blood, are like some of my shipmates, some of my, yeah, no, that's very deep, and yeah, because even sometimes even your own family can cut you deep, man. So
Yeah,
like
man.
family is fluid, man. It doesn't necessarily have to be blood, like you said. It's people that we interact with and close with that we consider family.
Yeah.
No, like me, I agree with that. I mean, growing up, for me, I wasn't really close to like my brothers and sisters and stuff like that. My best friend, like I consider him like my brother. Growing up and stuff like that. I mean, this was a guy that, when I was in high school, I went through some extreme dark times. I was a very suicidal kid. Growing up, a very depressed kid and stuff like that. And I used to get into a lot of fights. And there was this was sophomore year, and I just about had it, and I was the verge where, I was trying to figure out ways to end my life and stuff like that, and so I decided I was gonna, get some pills and stuff, buy some pills and stuff, to, put myself to sleep, and
Oh man.
not like that. But
That was your thought though?
yeah, that was my thought. I mean, I was what, 15 or something at the time, and I didn't have any money to buy pills and stuff like that. So my best friend, I went to him and stuff like that, and I called him in the bathroom, and I was talking. I was just like, man, hey, I need to borrow some money. And I looked at him, and you gave him, and he's looking at me. He's like, what do you need money for? And no, most of the time, he would just give me the money. If I
He was
need
smart
money.
though. Yeah.
And he started asking me, like, what do you need the money for? I was like, man, don't worry about it, man. I just need the money, man. Come on, you're going to give me the money.
Wow.
And I had a little bit of tears in my eyes, man. And he was just like, look, man, is this something you need to talk about and stuff like that? I was like, dude, I don't want to talk about nothing, man. Just give me the money. And he was just like, no, I'm not giving you anything. You tell me what you need it for. And, lesson be learned, he didn't give me the money. And, throughout the whole day, like he skipped his classes. I ended up skipping my classes that day because I was just, I was fed up, man. I was having trouble at home and stuff like that. And he skipped his classes. This is a kid that, like, at the time, he never really skipped his classes. But he skipped his classes, man. And we just spent the whole day just walking around, just hiding out in the bathroom and stuff like that. And then
At school?
Yeah, at school. And
That's family.
Let me ask you a quick question. Do you think that, especially with your blood family, do you think that they push the boundaries because your family, they expect you to do certain things to you and get away with certain stuff because you're blood?
Well, yeah, man. I mean, I come from, I'm Nigerian. So in our culture and stuff, there's a lot of pressure to be successful. I wasn't born in America. So being born in Nigeria, you come here, it's like we're expected to be smarter than the average American. And
Yep. You're automatically challenged to be the Uberman more than you can,
Yeah. So, there was all this pressure to be successful and make straight A's and stuff like that. So, sophomore year is when I started tanking. Freshman year I did pretty good. I was going to an advanced high school. Like you had to take a test to get into this high school, and I scored the second highest score out of 2,000 kids in a semester, and that's how I got accepted into the school. And it was like freshman year I did really, really well. I had advanced classes, honors, all of this stuff. And then one of the hardest classes for me was algebra, advanced algebra. And my dad, I busted
me
my
too.
butt. Yeah, it was tough, man. And I busted my butt for a semester to try to get 92 in this class. And my dad, this is what set me back, for my sophomore year. My dad looked at it my freshman year. He looked at my grades. He was like, "You made a 92 in college algebra. That's good, but you could do better." And I was like, "What?" Dude, that was like I had straight like hundreds and 90, like 99 in all these other classes except for this math class, which I was barely passing, and then I was able to make a 92. And to me, that was like, a high achievement. And my dad just looked at it like, "Man, you could do better." He couldn't even look at it. He was just like, so the next year, that's when I just started failing every class.
That's a bummer, man.
Yeah.
Because you weren't even motivated anymore, right? Stop me if I'm wrong, bro, but it seems like you tried to excel and live up to what the pressure was that was being asked of you, and it didn't even get acknowledged that you were doing that. So F it. Why even follow through then, right? Especially at 15 years old, like you're already rebellious in nature,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody else have like that kind of pressures from their family or growing up?
Man, I didn't have a lot of pressure from that side of things. Like from a scholastic standpoint, it was never like you need to make straight A's and straight B's. I had a lot of angst, just like really weird teen angst. My father and I had a yelling relationship where we would literally just scream back and forth at each other because he was so frustrated with me and I was so frustrated with rules and structure.
Yeah.
And then, I love my mother, so I'll state that first. But we had a very disassociated teenagehood. She was working a lot of evenings. She's a social worker, so it was a lot of fast food or fend for myself or just I was kind of a latchkey kid. And so that brought its own levels of torment, I got caught up with, I got arrested a couple times my senior year because I had pot on me at school and just, doing dumb stuff instead of doing it the right way, just kind of led me down the path. But all these experiences at the same time, like I feel like my family struggle and the struggle I had as a, teenager, not knowing my place in the world has helped me raise my child with knowledge of self and empowerment and exploratory learning from ground up, like from the moment she could start interpreting words and bring them into her headspace, like 2.5 years old up. It was promotion of what self-worth is, but understanding the importance of being able to coagulate with what societal norms are, right? And so that's what I'm trying to instill into my teenager is the strength and the fortitude to navigate those weird moments so that she doesn't have as hard of a time as I did.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good.
It's hard, is what it is.
What about you, Legend? How was your child?
Honestly, I both of my parents were teachers, so there was a certain amount of pressure in my household because my parents were, both my parents have a master's degree. So but at the same time, I think when I made mistakes, they still saw it as if I think I had the benefit of being a second child because I have an older sister. Mm-hmm. So I think that some of the pressures that they put on my sister, they saw how that affected her, and they didn't put those pressures on me. But still, I have my own, set of pressures as well. But I still think as my parents got older, they started to realize that I'm gonna be successful in my own way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm not gonna be success may not look like what your success looks like. You know what I'm saying? But I am gonna be successful, and my parents know that I'm a very tenacious person. If I latch on to something, I'm not going to let it go. Even when people tell me, man, you a fool for keep doing that. You know what I mean? When I first started doing music, people were always like that. You know what I mean? But when I get it in, I'm a Gemini. So when I get it in my head, I don't stop. So,
Gemini.
I deal with pressures in my home. but I think my parents were understanding that I was a kid and I was gonna make mistakes, but they guided me through that. But man, I got spanked, I got popped across the head, I got all that. But I think like Munster was saying about how he governs how he governs his household and teaches his daughter. I've tried to do the same. I've tried to take an element of what my parents did, but also an element of what I learned as a grown man once I stepped outside of my household and started to learn in the world. You know what I'm saying?
It's important to instill that onto the kids,
very
man.
Blessed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's important to instill that product of what is my place in the world. And unfortunately, if I'm going to be very transparent, I feel like the reason my wife and I are splitting is because I don't think she ever gave herself that freedom to explore what her place was in the world before she became a mother, before she became a partner, before she became, a student. I don't think she ever figured out who she was. And so I want to give her the respect and honor to that I think that is a driving force that we all have to have,
Munster, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Man, first of all, I want to say I love you, man, and I'm always here for you, bro. But do you think, like, because I was talking about this with a couple of friends of mine, like relationships that start, like, maybe in middle school and elementary school, and they grow into adulthood. Sometimes they may go awry because, like you were saying, people don't ever get to really find themselves, like their individuality. Like they know who they are with that person, but if they step away from that person, they're kind of lost in the sense.
Absolutely, man. And as someone who got to do that and had that experience and had that journey before I coupled up, I think I already had that perspective and I have that appreciation for that need. So that's giving me some good peace of mind as we transition through this, to give me the clarity I need to understand the why behind it, not always the emotion, Yeah.
No, you bring up that's a damn good point because I do have me and my daughter's mom, we didn't marry, and then I could just say in that situation fools rush in, but the blessing in that was that we had our daughter. However, I didn't marry my high school sweetheart when I was in the Navy, when I first joined the Navy, and when we first got together, we first got married, I had to ship out to the Bonhan Rashad, which is a ship. At the time, it was in the Gulf. It was in the Persian Gulf. It was home based in San Diego, so we moved to San Diego. And then within a month of being in San Diego, so this is early 20s. I would say I was like 20, 22, 23. She was about, she was 20, 21. So I had to go out to sea for like 2 months and then coming back, which was odd to me. So you're going to sea for 6 months. And one thing that stood out to me was when you come back from being in deployment, they have a group called MWR, Moral Welfare and Recreation. That's correct, right? You go Moral Welfare and Recreation, MWR?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So they teach you a class on coming back and adapting to being back with your spouse. I thought that was odd, but now in retrospect I understand it. And like Monster, what you were saying, during our relationship, she would always say, like, Mark, you adapt to things. You already know what you want to do in the world. I already knew what I wanted to do. Like, this was the path that I was taking. I was in the Navy. I was air traffic controller, doing my music stuff on the side. But during our relationship, there was kind of like a codependency, and she was questioning certain things that she wanted to do. At the time, she was going to San Diego State, and then that became our struggle. And eventually, we ended up getting a divorce. And my thing was, I didn't want there to be animosity, and I didn't want there to feel like, well, like one time we had an argument. She's like, Mark, I want to go to Paris to study abroad, but I can't because I'm married. And I'm like, look, I don't want to hold you back. If this is something you want to do, then do it. And at the time, I was hurt. When we got divorced, I was hurt. We didn't talk for a while. So this was back in 2001. But now she's an interior designer, man. That's what she wanted to do in school. She's very successful. And at the end of the day, it was like, you know what? We were together during this time. Yeah, we did get married. But in our case, we married young, and we were high school sweethearts. But looking back, she's off in the world. Like, she's very successful in magazines, has her own designing line. That was her calling. I'm doing what I want to do in life and where I need to be. But what I'm saying though, Monsters, to speak to it, at that time there was things that she wanted to do that was like, eating at her soul. And had we tried to stay and make it work, which would have been impossible because at the time I was in the Navy, years later we could have had kids and could have been in that situation. So
just breeding resentment's not ever good. And all we can do is understand that we're in our own driver's seats. We're not in anybody else's driver's seats, and we can't will another person to want something else. So all we do is hold another person back from ultimately what their passion is. Then that breeds resentment and negativity towards us. So it's kind of a trade-off. We have to be acknowledging of what the other person is that's involved in the scenario with us, whether that's in a partnership, whether that's in a work relationship, whether that's in a artistry combination. If you're working on a collaboration with someone, I think we can all attest that by trying to put boundaries and limitations on what another person's creativity, freedom, love, heart space is, it's only going to negatively come back onto us. And that's a hard lesson to learn. That's a hard pill to swallow, that sometimes we can't always get what we want,
Yeah.
That's a hard pill, man, but it's the truth.
Bro, that's such a hard pill to swallow. But you know what? I think a lot of times that's the malfunction in a lot of relationship. Is like Munson was saying, you want to will a person, and I think everybody's done it, because I know I've done it. I've tried to will people into doing things I wanted to do, but knowing, in my heart of hearts, that wasn't the right thing to do. But I was guided by my emotions, and I wasn't thinking logically. So, I mean, that's a malfunction in a lot of relationships, you know what I mean? Because it's like, if you're going left and I'm going right, obviously we're gonna part ways, you know what I mean? It's just like the law of physics, you know what I mean?
And it's toxic to hold on to that. If another person's pulling away and they're not participating in trying to realign, then it's toxic to both parties. It takes two to tango, man.
I agree. But I think when it's in real time, you don't see that toxicity. It's kind of like a hindsight is 20/20 type thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to learn how to breathe through it.
Let me ask you a question then. Because I notice in a lot of relationships, especially when it's the breakdown of a relationship, the communication piece. How do you communicate and navigate through that? Because I know, I just, from my perspective, from what I see, when things get rocky, a lot of people in relationships, they seem to hold that in, and then that builds that resentment. There's no real communication, right?
Absolutely. And then people start taking backdoor tactics instead of walking out the front door. And I think that's the hugest takeaway from this entire experience I've had is, understanding what the difference is between walking out the front door and holding your head high and earning yourself out of a relationship, doing the work that's necessary to come to closure with it, versus going out the back door and just skipping out and not checking in and checking out of the relationship for self-sufficient reasons. And I don't think that we shouldn't suffice ourselves. I think that we should communicate, to your point, to the partner, to the person, to the colleague, to the friend, to the brother, whoever it is, that these things are occurring. And when we stop communicating that there is an occurrence that's negative, because we're living in fear and we operate out of fear instead of leaning into it, we're operating in the fear, or out of fear, I would say. That's the problem. We're operating out of fear, so we're not communicating what is hard. If we lean into the fear and we navigate the void, we can then converse and communicate over what's hard. So what we've done over the past, I'd call it 6 weeks, because it's been the hardest 6 weeks probably in my life, is learn how to create common ground moving forward. And that's all I can recommend to anybody going through it in any kind of relationship or partnerhood, is if things are going awry, the best thing you can do is try to respect the other individual. And it's hard to do. Meet in the middle, man. Yep. Yeah. Roosevelt, associationalism. It's a real thing.
Because I'll be real with you, Monster, and I'll be real with y'all. Like I said, I have a daughter. Me and her mom, our relationship, which I truly hate, is like the resentment or whatever residual stuff is fed through my daughter and relived. Yeah. And me and the mother's relationship is so fragmented. There is no co-parenting that I much rather go through the court, and as embarrassing as that is, that's how we communicate. Yeah. And,
Well, sometimes you need a third party mediator to communicate, and there's nothing wrong with that, man.
But two things, y'all. I think that communication breakdowns comes because in relationships, a lot of times we don't cultivate friendships. You know what I mean? We may cater to the relationship, but we never cater to a friendship because that's a malfunction of a lot of relationships because there's no friendship in it. And it's easier to communicate with your friend a lot of times than someone you're in a relationship with. That's why people, they don't communicate with their partner. They go and tell their friend what they should be telling their partner.
Yep.
Because the lack of cultivating that relationship.
But
and then two,
but you can't. Yeah, but one of the biggest things, I mean, if I'm dating someone or I'm with someone and stuff like that, I mean, I'm going to care about her and stuff like that. And I might call her my friend, but in the truest sense, I'm a male, I'm a guy, my good friend is going to most likely be a guy. You can't, women try to always put. No,
I'm saying if you start a relationship that's born out of a friendship, that's what I'm talking about.
I thought sometimes friendship wouldn't that be the foundation of the relationship though? You start off as friends.
No,
but it's not always.
I'm just saying a lot of people jump into you being together for a month or two and say they're in love, but then that breaks apart as time goes because they really find out about that person.
They're in lust. They're
and
not
I'm just
in love.
speaking
They're
from
in
personal experiences. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
exactly. And to Mark's point, what he's saying, I'm praying for you, bro, because I went through the same exact thing. Me and my son's mother, we communicate very peacefully now, and we're on a common ground. But 5-6 years ago, it was war. It was battle. You know what I mean? So, I can definitely understand that, and sometimes, a lot of those things happen to you. They can turn you into an ugly person. I had to self-check myself, because I was turning into a person who was very angry, very snappy, very, very just looking at situations and people as if, let me get this person before they get me. Yeah. And that's not the type of person I was. And I really had to take a step back.
Yeah, I got two statements on that. First one is to Hugo's point. I want to kind of piggyback off what his point was, I think. And yes, as males, dude, we're going to always have our homies and our boys that we go to kind of get the perspective we need on am I thinking this right? Or is this jacked up or whatever? But there is something fundamentally important about when we couple with a female, and that female is our softer hand, if you will. Mm-hmm. There is something very important about formulating a bond of communication that's open and fluid at the very beginning, because if you don't, then you're just in lust and the relationship is doomed to fail, even if you have it. I mean, let's look at me, bro. 14 years. I had 14 years with the woman of my life, man. The love of my life. And I will love her until the day that I stop breathing. But it no longer fits into our schemas to walk down the path that we were walking down. And there was direct communication breakdown. It probably has been over the span of a few years, and you don't realize it until it gets really bad. And then you start looking at the outside factors that drive that communication breakdown. And maybe the real truth of the matter is that sometimes when we love someone, we ignore our own needs in order to benefit the greater good, and we ignore the fact that we probably should have departed or left or explored what was going on much sooner.
You think it's just because
Dr. Munster preaching today?
No, he's dropping some truth. You know what, brother? I applaud your whole tone is calm.
I know.
You sound like at peace. It's like I think you're at the acceptance piece. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Like they say, when you've been with somebody for a long time, you lose a piece of you, and that piece, you guys become a piece, and then that piece is taken away, man.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
I'm not gonna lie, man. With my ex-wife, man, and this happened like right after 9/11, and I found out I was going to war. It took years. To like resolve. Matter of fact, me and her met in Florida 2 years ago. Before then, we hadn't seen each other since 2001. Wow. And we finally just like closure, like met up as friends and hey, how you doing? So I understand exactly where you are, man, and I apply like your resolve, you everything you have checked. I just had a question though.
Yeah.
Because, every time, whenever we see things or we see something happen, we go back in our mind and play the movies. Like, did you see, like, positions where there were, like,
red flags?
And cues?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and I could see them in real time too. And we tried our best. I can say this wholeheartedly. We tried our best at the acknowledgement and realization phase of we may be at the point of dissolving this thing. We tried our best to communicate the needs and the facets of what would probably be required in order to try to turn the ship around, if you will. But at the end of the day, and this ties back to what I initially said, the truth of the matter, and the truth that I think my partner had to embrace, and I had to embrace ipso facto, is that she really needed to go explore who she is in the world. It's not as not a mother or a sister or a wife or a daughter or a student or an employee, but just like, who is this person in the world? And if you don't do that, then nothing's ever going to be successful. So who's to know what the future holds? Like I said, I unconditionally love this woman, and I will for the rest of my life. We're just not in the position right now going to walk down the pathway together that we have. We've raised an amazing child in doing so. We've been through trials and tribulations, and that's how you grow to be a stronger person. So hopefully we can grow to be stronger people down the line that can come together, and if nothing else, be the best co-parents for our child that we can.
Yeah, I think one of those things, man, is once you break up and stuff like that, and I found this, I was in a relationship 4.5 years, it wasn't marriage. We didn't produce an offspring or anything like that. But, 2017, when we broke up, man, I was devastated, man. I was having panic attacks and stuff. I've never had a panic attack ever in my entire life. I didn't even know. I thought that was make-believe, man. I thought people who had
that's a scary thing when that happens, man. Especially when you never had one, bro, and it hits you.
Man.
You're like, whoa. I only had 2 in my life, so I feel you, bro.
So I had to sit there and reassess everything, man. I started going YouTube and stuff, watching these how to get your ex back. I started buying books, man.
The truth of the matter is, it's not in any book. It's not in any writing. It's not in any scripture. It's breaking the family of origin cycles so that we don't repeat the behaviors and traits that led us to the point of dissolvation anyway. So all we can ever do is try to look at what's my role? What was my role in this? How can I change my tactics, my directives? How do I align? This is my journey, y'all, so I'm just talking from me. But how do I align my ideal self with my actual self? And that's what I work on every day, is breaking those family of origin cycles. Mark, to your point, that's what your daughter's going to have to work through, and that's what y'all are going to have to work through together, is breaking those cycles, man, because otherwise they repeat. And all we can do is try to be good stewards of acknowledging what us to hear. What was my role that led me to this point in time?
Man, you just spoke on something deep. That's
go
deep.
ahead, Mark.
No, he said family origin, and this was one of the most upsetting parts. And you just touched on something that me and my girlfriend were talking about. So my dad was, and we talking about family. Like I have a brother that's 18 years younger than me, man. He lives in Round Rock. Me and this dude, we barely see each other, man. It's fragmented. After my dad passed away, it's here or there, man. But my dad, for my life, he wasn't around. And that's one thing that always stood out to me, like that void that I grew up with. And I never wanted a child that I brought into this world to not have a father, because I knew I wanted to break that cycle. My daughter's mother, same thing. But she's okay with, her father's in the vicinity of her grandparents, or he was in the same vicinity of where she lived at. She could care less. So we had 2 different thought processes, right? And my main thing and then the thing that bothers me is we both lived that life without having a father, and I can tell you, I know how it affected me mentally. I know how it affected her mentally. Let's work to resolve this. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to create that, and that's been my motivation. Like, you guys see me on YouTube. I mean, you guys see me on Facebook all the time, man. I'm flying here and there. You know what I mean? Like, I'm very visible in my daughter's life, and I think that's what you mean with place of origin. But like you said, there's still going to be residual stuff. But I think that's the one thing that kills me the most is we both grew up without our father, and I believe both parents are vital. And I want to be visible in my daughter's life, but I get static. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that sucks.
One of the biggest things though, you can't change, your mother, your daughter's mother. You can't change her.
No, you're in your driver's seat, bro.
Yeah, the only person you can change, you can work on, is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's one of the biggest things I've learned in the past 2 years. You know, from, you know, I know Monster don't believe it, the books, you can't find it in books and stuff like that. But man, you know, they've helped me, man. Like I read. You know, right now I've read like 10 books in the past 2 years. You know, before, you know, I couldn't even tell you one book I even read. You know, I didn't even believe all of this like self-help stuff.
Oh, reading's lovely, and that shit's beautiful. And I think if it helps you, then wonderful. I think I just meant on my journey. I find more that I've had to just learn this through life than in books. But I think everybody picks up stuff differently. So you go, if that's helping you, then that's amazing, dude. And I respect you for that.
And like the videos, man, audio videos and stuff like that, learning that, you know, there's people that, man, they screw you over. They make you mad. They make you just want to like, just go crazy, go insane. But you can't change them. You know, it's like going out, you know, looking up in the air. It's like raining and stuff like that and being like, man, I wish it would stop raining. I wish the sky would just stop raining.
No,
you know, you can't affect.
The one thing that I had to learn, dude, is like to sit back. I go to counseling. One thing I told my counselor, like we had a talk, and she's like, "You learn to accept." I'm in a good place right now. It's like I just accept things for what they are. These are the cards that are dealt, and what can I do with my influence and my impact? Because once you can't change people. Like my mom told me this a long time ago. Like, I also have high blood pressure, and there was one time, bro, I was in the hospital. And the doctor looked at me and was like, yo, you could have popped. And I didn't put two and two together till after I left the hospital emergency room, and one of my friends had to break it down like, yo, you could have had an aneurysm or a blood vessel could have popped. That could have been a wrap. And my mom always told me, like, when you let people control how you feel, they have control over you. They're over there living their life.
Yeah, you give your power away,
Yeah,
man.
they give you
You're
power,
giving your
man.
power away.
And, and I'm pretty sure with you, Monster, like, our kids are like, they're wild cards, right? Like, you never know what you're going to get. But I've learned to, like, you got to accept things for what they are, man. Hey, I like you say with the family, what is it, 50% of people's families come from a split and broken home. Like, it's not
60 now.
Yeah, it's not Leave It to Beaver, right? And it's not one size fits all. You know what I mean? I accept this is my situation, and with the power and influence that I have, I'll try to rectify, counter-correct whatever I can, but I have to accept people and things for what they are and where I'm at.
Absolutely. And the easier we can do that, the easier life is, man. I want to segue at this point from my last topic point for this week was to talk about what is the modern family. Let's start this discussion. Is it blood, or is it people we consider in our inner circle? Because I want to end with this as I hear all of the family piling into this party we're about to do. As I've told you guys in this show, my wife and I are unfortunately separating and dissolving our marriage, but I have nothing but love for this woman and for these people who have become my family over the past 14 years. So as I go downstairs and celebrate my soon-to-be ex-father-in-law's new wife's over the past few years, birthday, I do it out of love because this will always be my family, even though he'll always be my father-in-law, whether it's on paper or not. Let's say that. It's not even about to not be my father-in-law because he will always be that. It's just, family's weird, y'all. And it is not June Cleaver, to your point.
So weird.
That's my end piece on that.
Well,
yeah.
Well, one thing I just want to put on there is something that I always worry about as a father is how my son's growing up because, me and his mother are not together. And I grew up at home when my mother and father were there. So, that's something that always concerns me and something that always is in the back of my mind because I wonder how my son's going to be affected by that because I know how I was affected by just living in a two-parent home. So just imagine how the world has changed and how you have to go out here. And, you have to be, mentally and physically and financially and psychologically and spiritually.
Yeah, man.
I think a family doesn't necessarily have to be your blood.
No.
That's one thing I wonder about. But, I just do the best.
Hey, Monster, I think you're cutting up. Legend, you're
Legend.
No, because love comes from all kind of places, man. I've been working in education for 15
I think there's like a delay.
can you hear me?
No,
Yeah,
you were
like
cutting
a
out,
delay.
bro.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I was saying I've been working with kids for 15
Oh man, you're
years.
breaking up
No,
again.
we're losing you, man.
Seen all type of different
Legend. We lost you.
Yeah, we lost you, man.
So, it's had a good
The
point.
joys of Skype, man. The joys of Skype. So Hugo, man, what do you think about, is family blood or is family blood?
I mean, family is whoever you consider your family and stuff like that. I mean, I'm just now reconnecting with my brothers and sisters, man. And, me and my dad, we just finally made up after, about 7 years of not communicating. I'd see this guy like once or twice a week, and, I haven't said a word to him at all. And then my mom, she finally had enough with it and called a family intervention. And now, we're trying. I mean, it's not, I'm not, my family, we weren't, growing up, I didn't have that lovey-dovey, I love you, mom, love you, dad type, relationship. It was more of a robotic, to me, it was more of a robotic type relationship. If I ever screwed up, I got beat. My mom took care of that. My dad handled the psychological abuse. And that's why I call it psychological abuse, because that's what it was. But in hindsight, I feel to this day, it helped me become a stronger person, because, I don't take anything from anybody. I don't allow anyone to bully me or intimidate
Take
me.
your power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it kind of makes me, emotionally stagnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can relate to that.
But dude, that's a perfect point, Hugo. That ties directly to the point you were making, and that I circled back on, of what a female will bring into your life presence-wise. Like you say, you feel emotionally stagnant or emotionally cut off. I think that's what the female estrogen heart energy brings, and helps bring to the male dominant, protector energy, is how do we acknowledge better our emotions, and how do we direct them in the right way? And that's what a woman brings to our table, I think.
Okay, I got a question for you.
I agree.
Because this is the role that I see in a lot of relationships, and the male role as far as with raising kids. Like with my daughter, I'm the protector. I'm not really the. I'm a nurturer. I'm an encourager, but I'm not soft, fluffy, and blase blah. And I've noticed, like, a lot of my friends that are in marriages and are raising kids, we're more of the, like, we push our kids to go out there. You fall down, brush yourself up, get back up. But we're not the coddling, sugary type of type deal. Right?
That's very true, man. I mean, that's typical. I mean, that is, I hate to be genderfied here, but that's typical of the dad. I mean, that's kind of what is inherently natural for us to do, is to, especially I think with sons. I don't have a son, but I can only imagine how much rougher I would have been with my son than I am with my daughter. My daughter forces me to learn how to be soft.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Same here, likewise.
That's what I say. You think it's because, we're all alphas and stuff, man?
probably. I know that I'm a very dominant dude, and that I don't deal well with people I can walk all over. I will do that. So I know that with a woman in my life, has to be pretty dominant as well. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Yeah. But I like what you said too, because like you, Hugo, and this was always brought. Like, I was raised by a single mom in a military family. There was a lot of times I spent more time with the babysitter, or there was microwave meals, and I'm quick to, I have a heart, but it's you got to work to get there. To where my girlfriend, she's like the yang. She's an empath. She's very nurturing, very, very, like, she softens me up, and we kind of even each other out. But before, it was like kind of like the lone wolf, and it took a while to get there, man. I mean, to get into whatever, it took a while, and I'm very, like, self-sufficient. And then even to the point to whereas my ex-mother-in-law was like, she would always point out that, you didn't really come from a nurturing environment, but I knew, like, hey, at 18, I'm joining the Navy, I'm getting out the house, I'm on my own. And there was plenty of times where I wouldn't talk to my family for, like, weeks, because I was up there doing my thing. But, like, with the current relationship I'm in with now, which I plan this is forever, is she's the softer side, and she helps me see to whereas this other world I didn't really delve into it, didn't see. You know what I mean? So
Hey, shout out Carrie.
yeah.
Man, I'm scared. I'm scared to be. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'll ever find a female who can put up with my BS, man. I don't think I can get soft.
You can't
man.
wall yourself off like that, man. You never know, bro. You really you put yourself into those boxes and you leave yourself there. But if you take that framework off, you never know what might come your way, man.
And Monster, for you to be going through what you go, and you know what the thing that I love that you said, and I'm like, yo, I appreciate, like you said, there's still love and there's understanding about, look, this is what happened. Like, we've grown apart. I still got love for you, and let's co-parent. I love that, man. I love
Yeah,
it.
man. Thank you.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard, man. Okay. Let me ask you this question, Monster.
Okay.
And okay, let's say a year from now, whatever. You guys are split. Finally everything worked out and whatever. How are you gonna feel? Do you think you'll be able to handle seeing your ex with someone else?
Like walking around and I run into them, or at an event where I know that that's probably going to be a thing.
Knowing that they're in a relationship, she has a new boyfriend, a new boo, or whatever,
Yeah, no, the knowledge part's fine. I don't know necessarily how to answer how I would feel seeing it, because, like, you can't ever really answer that. But I've already come to terms with that, Like, that's something you have to come to terms with to accept the piece of the true, I hate to use this word, y'all, the true death of something. Well, I mean, I'm mourning, and so in mourning, you have to accept that it's truly no longer. Even if miraculously we were to come together years down the line, it wouldn't be the same entity that we had. So in mourning the death of what we had, I can then embrace that there will be something new, a new life, a phoenix that's reborn from it. And I want that for her. I want her to be happy. Ultimately, I don't think I would tomorrow want to be walking down the street and see her with someone, but I accept that that's an inevitability.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's one of the hardest things, man, of breaking up, man. Seeing
It
someone
is.
you're intimate with someone else,
But ultimately, I want her to be happy. So if who she ends up with makes her happy, that's all I can hope for. Now, I can only say that I'm fearful to embrace that when it happens, only because it's the unknown. But that ties back into what I was saying, guys. We got to lean into the fear. So we operate out of fear. So of course I'm fearful of it, Hugo. But dude, I also kind of relish it. Like, meaning I welcome it for when it occurs, but I don't want it now.
Yeah.
I want her to be happy ultimately, and if that means it's not with me, then that means it's not with me. Now, I don't want to have to see that necessarily right now, but it's raw, it's fresh,
But yeah, and
Well,
you're at the acceptance stage, man. You've accepted things, and that's a good place to be in, especially during all of this.
We just want to get along, man. That's important for Haven.
Well, if you ever need help, digging a hole or something, just kidding.
We here, man. You ever need the goons to come out, man? We take them on a soprano ride in the trunk. Now I'm playing, but
Hey, no, that's for dating. Those are rules for dating my daughter. I might have to reach out to y'all for that. So you get your shovel, Mark, you get your car.
Hey.
We'll keep them on deck in case we need them there. I'm just kidding. All right. Well, yeah. I probably ought to hop off of here because I hear a bunch of commotion downstairs on my end. Do we want to do a weekly recap or anything? Or
no, we actually got like 1 minute left, man. So that's a good segue,
cool.
Man.
This was a good show, y'all. I appreciate it. Ledger, you still on?
Nah, he's got like internet problems.
Oh, okay. All right, y'all. Well,
I'm gonna plug something real quick.
Plug it.
Next Saturday, I'm gonna be in Round Rock, Texas, competing at the Battle of Central Texas. It's gonna be my first time on stage with the GBO, Global Bodybuilding Organization, Men's Physique Pro. So let's see. The work hopefully will be done, and I'll be looking my best. And anybody in Round Rock, Texas, come out, say what's up.